I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Page County School Board.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez?
Please pause for a minute of silence as we prepare for the meeting tonight. For the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do you have any agenda changes or additions?
I do not.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as given.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Dr. Painter to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to certify that personnel matters discussed in closed session this evening of section 2.2-3711A1.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Mr. Painter to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. We have one citizen comment that was submitted online. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the consent agenda.
Dr. Painter?
Yes.
Mr. Gaylor?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. The July 2023 minutes are posted for review. If anybody has any questions?
It's June.
July.
You popped in. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think thought I was only approving our personnel part because we never talked about those other things. Like, we didn't talk about the religious exemption or the overnight field trip.
All of that was under consent agenda.
But we never
Not
saw
discuss
it.
those. We didn't.
Usually you don't see the religious, it just should
But I
say-
know, but we hear about the field trips.
That's the one you always approve every year. It's just
Oh,
standard
that's the one.
PHSO, yeah.
Okay.
That's why we just moved it up there. And that's just for the fall. We'll come back to you for the winter and the spring.
We did.
Are we good? Everybody good
So
with the
now we-
consent agenda?
Now we're informational.
Right. So the minutes are there. Ms. Seekers, monthly financials.
Yes, good evening, board members. You've been provided with the monthly expenditures and revenue for July that were $3,298,979.54. Along with that, you've been provided with the local match calculation that we did balance with the treasurer's office. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, bus radio update.
Yes, good evening, members of the school board. Earlier in the summer, we did a presentation for you on the new radio system that we were having installed. The county had the same system installed in the spring. And so I just wanted to close that loop and give you an update. 120 radios 104 of which are part of school buildings or part of a vehicle. And so the install is complete on all the vehicles and in all of the offices. They have been signed up on by our people at the school level. When they were installed at each school, members of the office staff, whether it be a principal or main secretary, were taken through usage as they were installed and checked to make sure they were working. And then we are training all of our drivers this coming week on August the 15th. So the only thing that we are yet to complete, there are 16 portable radios. You might remember I talked about a principal being able to take them and walk them with them if they left the office after school, for instance. And those handheld devices are still yet to be programmed and distributed, but that is coming. We have a definite date on that. That is the last phase, but we have a permanent mounted radio in every building, in every vehicle, and all of our drivers will be brought up to speed on those next week.
Thank you.
Yes.
Concussion policy and process?
Crisis plan first.
Oh, the crisis plan first. Never mind. Sorry. Skipped one. Crisis plan.
Yes, as you know, each year it is a requirement that the school board approve an updated crisis plan. And that's a little bit tricky in that in a public session, obviously there are pieces of the crisis plan that are confidential in regards to evacuation processes, evacuation points. So what I'm presenting to you tonight is a synopsis, and I would say we would be happy to share with you in a secure manner more detail if that's something that you wanted to see. But for tonight, I wanted to just kind of give you an overview. As you know, we took this to an online version last year, and it's really grown in a positive manner. All administrators have instant access. Not only do they have instant access, but there are components of the plan that are school specific that administrators can update if we have a change in responsibility or role in a crisis step, or somebody leaves and somebody else comes on board. That's fluid. A principal at a given building will change that on their end, and it's automatic within the division crisis plan. So when we are here looking at a response to a crisis, we will always be looking at the most updated version, which is a positive piece to this. And the roles and responsibilities then are very clearly articulated. Every school has a specific critical response sheet, and every school has designated specific functions. I'll give you an example: who's carrying the medical kit, who's the backup for that person in case they're not there that day. And there's just bulleted out, listed roles and responsibilities, and we make sure that staff within the schools understand their roles, are trained for their roles. The backup person understands and is trained. And again, that's a fluid document so that should there ever be a need for change, it happens simultaneously. What's new in it this year? We, as I just said, we did revise the site-specific evacuation details. That's another piece of this. There were some lessons learned this year, as you know, when we went through one crisis at one of the elementary schools. And we debriefed that incident for weeks, and we debriefed with pretty much every employee group that we possibly could, from admin to teacher assistants to teachers to law enforcement. There were many, many debrief meetings. There were many lessons learned that were applicable across the division. And so one of those is, and I won't go into too much detail, but it is specific to how, when, where we evacuate. And so that has been updated in the crisis plan for every school. We updated our articulation of responsibilities for all central office administrators. Again, when the rubber hits the road, it's one thing to put a crisis plan in place. When the rubber hits the road, what central office staff are doing what? And I'll give you an example. When the central office heads to an evacuation site, who's going straight to the site? Who's going to the office of the school and connecting with law enforcement? Who's handling, working with Miss Jeffrey's staff on food and water if it's in the middle of the day? We had a good plan, but we have a better plan today. Again, we were able to update, articulate, and so, it's it's a positive experience when you learn and when you make adjustments. And we feel like we did that. And everybody has instant access to the plan I'm talking about in regards to school administration and division-wide administration. We did add to the plan a very specific spreadsheet about AED defibrillators. We already had the CRG maps. You remember we got those up and running last year. Those maps clearly show where is every AED defibrillator in every building, where specifically on a map, where is it located? Now we also have where all of the principals can access what type battery, what type model is it, what type battery is it, when's the expiration date, and who's paying attention to that. So that's all in this plan now. And that's still growing. I learned this week some of our outdoor sporting facilities were adding AEDs to certain locations. And so that's being added. So, any one of us can look and tell you not only where is it, what type is it, when's the battery going to expire, those kinds of things. So we feel really good about that. We did this just a few months ago. Every school resource officer now has a Grand Master key. So again, in event of a crisis, others can access those buildings quickly. We are now, Mr. Dykes has been working with me on this, we are now in the bidding and scoping of work for Knox boxes for every building. So we've got our eye on the model, we've got our eye on the process, we've met with county, Matt Cronin from the county who oversees all the emergency response. And so that's another thing that's literally, that may be a couple of weeks away. It depends on just when we can get those and the procurement side of it, when we can get that. But that's not a big expense. We've got it earmarked through grant money, and that's coming as well. So something that we don't have on our buildings today. So we're excited about that. Things that are continuing, that have been in this plan in the past. Every administrator every year conducts a very specific building safety checklist. They walk around and there are physical attributes, shrubbery, state of fencing, state of locks, state of doors. A building inventory is taken. Our staff and students participate in safety surveys that go to the BDOE. So they're highly confidential. The beauty of that is then we get what we believe is authentic data. It's not something that they're worried or what's going to be said if my principal sees my answer to this. It goes straight from the employee or the student to the DOE, comes back to us in raw data, and then we evaluate the data, and then we do a state report on behalf of the division, looking for trends. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the concerns? So that's ongoing. We've been doing that. Building level designated, the school-based crisis teams. I just alluded to that to start. We continue to grow the training links in this plan. So we have lots of training videos, for instance, on the LifeSpot app. And that company continues, and they're very good at sending out bite-sized training. 1 minute, 90-second training nuggets. How do I turn it on? How do I mark myself present in a building? So those are good. They're not sit and view this 15-minute video. If a staff member just needs a quick refresher, that's in there. We have a schedule on when are we adding and who are we adding as far as new employees to an app like LifeSpot, who's coming off of it. So a lot of the training and preparation information is in this plan. And the other thing that's we do have a comprehensive emergency drill schedule for this is a fluid live document. If a principal tells us at a given school we're having a bus evacuation on this day, and then that principal wakes up with the flu and something strange happens. If they change it, we know instantly that has changed. The date is instantly changed. So we can look across the division, across the schools, and tell you every drill that's planned, where it's planned, what type of drill, is it bus evacuation, is it fire drill, is it hurricane, tornado, those kinds of things. So we're just continuing to grow this plan, but we feel very positive about it. Needed to bring that to you. It's informational. Happy to take questions, and we'll bring it back to you in 2 weeks to get your approval for state code.
So I got a question on that. So how deep
does the leadership go in each building? Like, I know your principal would be the main
Yeah,
contact,
good question.
then AP, then, what if they both get locked in?
Yeah, so on the crisis plan, we tackled that.
Okay,
So we have a chain of command list on by school. So you'll have your principal, you have your assistant principal, next in line, might be an athletic director, might be a school counselor, might be a lead teacher, next in line. So it goes down, articulation of responsibilities. And so it goes, that piece goes probably 4 to 5 deep. And then below that, there's another 8 to 10 responsibilities, and there's 2 staff per each responsibility.
So let's make, for instance, if the AP and P and principal are taken away out of the equation, the next person's up.
That's right.
And then who goes from the central office to the site to help manage?
So that's the articulation of responsibilities. Then you're getting into what our responsibilities are. And to answer your question, I'm the one that goes directly to the site in conjunction with law enforcement.
Okay.
And then we have some other folks behind me here that go directly to the evacuation site ahead of the school level staff and the students. And so we've got that specifically spelled out.
Okay. Thank you.
And they all know their duties.
Thank you. Now I think it's concussion policy and practice.
This is a brief item in regards to the policy, but I wanted to provide you with a little bit of depth, and I won't go through it, but it's here for you to look at as much as deep as you want to. Our athletic trainers, if you actually open, we have provided the link to the Page County Athletic Training Manual. This is a really quality document that's been put together in conjunction with Luray and Page High, athletic trainers leading the way, athletic directors working with them. But this document, I think, is strong. This led to the request to have the policy updated. So I'll just talk about the document first and then come back to the policy. They spell out, a little bit like we just did with the crisis plan, the athletic departments have spelled out everything from their mission statement, who their team members are in case of an athletic emergency. And you can kind of just see here, they articulate everything from the qualifications of the trainer to the state of the training room, what we expect to have in the training room. I reflect on my own days as principal years ago at Page County High School. We didn't have a full-time trainer. And so one of the very best things you ever did as a school board, in my opinion, was to make sure that we got some full-time licensed trainers. And it's a game changer in safety. And then to see this work product from them, and this isn't new, but it has been growing. And I thought it was so good, I wanted to share it with you and the public, because this is not a private document. This is how do we approach heat? How do we approach practice when it's 95 degrees and there's a certain humidity level? How do we approach hydration? What about student athletes? What about physicals and when they want to participate, and concussions? And so, again, I don't want to go through their manual, but it's good. And if it's of interest to you, I think you will enjoy taking a look at the depth of it. But that led to the policy. Policy JJAC, and we are completely in compliance in regards to the mandates that came down many years ago now. I think we probably left concussion practices, how we were monitoring suspected concussions, return to play, all of that. And so that our policy is current. It looks dated because it says July 25th, 2011, but that's when the mandates with the criteria came out, what we had to do. What we're asking for, if you can scroll down, there's just some red font, and this is straight from the trainers by the athletic directors. You can see, for instance, the term SCAT 2 is now replaced with SCAT 5. What's happened, these protocols and testing have just grown, and they've renumbered them, they've renamed them. And then as well, there are other tools now. The immediate post-concussion and cognitive test, it's a name of a protocol. The sway balance test, it's another name for how do they know how a student's doing when they're in the field testing. We didn't have these specifics in this policy. So that's what we're asking for, is just to update the policy to put in front of the athletic trainers a guiding document that's more current. So we just ask for your, and again, this is informational, and we can come back next time and ask for your approval on it. We have to have this policy update.
Thank you for sharing the training manual.
Good credit to those in the schools. It's good work.
Important work.
Dr. Fox, superintendent's update.
Yes, so good evening, and I want to echo thank you to our trainers for the work that they do. They're taking good care of our kids on those fields and on our courts. So we're grateful to them and to our principals and ADs for taking the time to produce documents like this. So my update tonight has a variety of different things for you. Since we're at that time of year where we start looking at enrollment, that's the first slide for you. A little bit more positive than it was last year. We gave you sort of one of the last figures from the end of last year. That was, I think, the last time I may have updated you on enrollment, just to give you a sense of where we were. Where we are now, if you recall our ADM budgeted number, we went a little bit conservative because of last year. Right now, we're sitting at plus 10 students. So we're still 2 weeks out from the start of school. We tend to
You'll get
typically-
like 20 more kindergarten.
I don't want to jinx anything, but a plus 10, we're happy with plus 10. We'll take a plus 10. So that's just, we'll continue to update you next couple of board meetings, just so you have a sense of where we are with the moment. We wanted to share with you that last week, over the course of 2 days, our principals, assistant principals, central office staff, we all participated in our annual leadership academy. 2 long days, I think, but they were good days. We spent 2 full days together with each other and did a lot of different things. But some of the work that we did, we have totally sort of revamped our attendance practices and procedures, and we'll bring you all of that information shortly. We looked at, went through our health services updates. We had, I think, a really good conversation about AI, artificial intelligence, and how that might be used in schools and how you navigate that and what it brings. We talked about some security and safety updates and training. I'll share with you later that the SRO, Officer Roy from the Luray PD came and trained our administrators on using the handheld metal detector. So that was fun to watch that happen.
Garrett.
And, yeah, Garrett is his name. And they learned how to use that appropriately, which was great because it was appreciated that the law enforcement again partnered with us to make sure that our staff knew how to use that appropriately. Mrs. Brubaker, our division attorney, came in. She gave us information on Title IX policies and processes. That was an in-depth conversation as well about reporting and then what happens once all that reports to make sure we're doing everything that we need to do there. We gave some legislative updates, 1 or 2 of which I'll give you tonight. And then we ended our sessions with the poverty simulation. So that poverty simulation, I think, was really impactful. I know I went home with some different thoughts and things about how, if you could go to the next slide for me, about how I view things. I happened to play the role of a 7-year-old boy who had ADHD. So I had a fun afternoon. Yeah, just bouncing all over the place. Paul and I had a good time being kids with, we were just 7-year-olds. We were all over the place. So, but, you know, Patty was my grandfather. So she had, grandmother, excuse me, she had different roles and responsibilities. So her life was a lot more stressful than mine was as a 7-year-old. So that was just a really good experience. And we had about 50 participants there. Some central office staff, all of our school-based administrators, some community members, Mr. Painter and Ms. Gordon and Ms. Alger were there participating on the school board. And the object of that was just to sensitize participants into the realities that are faced by some of our lower income families. And different kinds of makeups. Like my particular family was, my grandparents were raising me and I had a 9-year-old sister. There were others where folks were homeless or maybe someone had just lost a job. I think Mr. Samples had been just recently let go from his IT job. Just fortuitous that it ended up being related to his real job. Mr. Painter, I can't remember what you were.
I was a 14-year-old.
Yeah, we were in school. We just went to school every day, so we just sat in school. But a really interesting exposure. We're going to do it again with some staff and open it up. So we'll certainly open it up to the community. We've purchased our own kit to be able to do it ourselves. because we think it's so impactful. And I think it's something you could do multiple times, and each time you do it, you're going to learn and gain a different perspective from it. So we certainly want to just say thank you to the Virginia Cooperative Extension. They came and led it. They secured all the volunteers. They set it up. PACA was there to support us in doing that. There were volunteers there that worked all of the stations. The staff at Luray were great. They got that gym set up for us. So shout out to their custodians and staff there and our mowing crew, because they brought in some things that we needed to make that happen. So we just want to say thank you, because that was a big thing to set up and run. And we're really grateful to have had that experience. Just a couple of legislative updates I want you all to be aware of. These are pretty big ones that are out there. And we will be sharing this information, obviously, with teachers and parents. But one of the biggest one is a parent notification about bullying incidents. So previously, administrators, principals, or designees had up to 5 days to report a bullying incident to a parent. That's changed. It's now 24 hours. So within that time period, a principal or whoever they've designated to handle that incident needs to call the parent of the student that's the victim, that's the aggressor, and or any witnesses that might have, even if they haven't completed their investigation, they need to alert parents that they're investigating an incident of bullying. So that's changing the landscape of that, because an example is if something happens on a Friday afternoon at dismissal, which happens, it has to be handled before Saturday afternoon. It can't be, usually we would leave things till Monday because that's the next work day. This code is specific that it's a 24-hour period, not a day period. So administrators have been briefed on this, and we're working through all the protocols to make sure things are documented. I think one of the most challenging things with it, if you could go to the next slide, it's the definition of bullying, because everything gets characterized as bullying. If you're mean to somebody, it's characterized as bullying. And we're not saying that it's not, but the Code of Virginia and the Department of Education have been very explicit in what bullying is. And it has to meet those three things, where it's aggressive and unwanted behavior that's intended to harm, intimidate, or humiliate. It involves a real or perceived power imbalance. And it's repeated over time and can cause severe emotional trauma. That's the technical definition of bullying. So do we have incidences of that? Yes. Does it get written up and classified as bullying? Yes. But it also is particular, if you'll look at the last bullet there. It says that bullying does not include ordinary teasing, horseplay, argument, or peer conflict. So I might go and call my school board chair a name and then lose my job, but that doesn't necessarily, the first time I do it, constitute a bullying incident. So it wouldn't necessarily be marked that in our system. Now, if I was repeated in that and I had some power and leverage, that would then constitute a bullying. So it's going to take some education with parents to understand that not everything, and this is something we've been doing for a long time since this definition came out, is helping parents understand how bullying is technically classified. What we're going to be doing is any incident where there's some kind of harm, there's a victim, there's aggressor, and there's a witness, our administrators are going to be calling within that 24-hour period, because it's hard sometimes to differentiate and move forward. So to err on the side of just being proactive with situations, they're going to make every effort to reach out to that parent within 24 hours. I just wanted you all to be aware of that, that new code, because that's a big, big change in the world of school administration. Questions about that, Mr.
Yeah, I
Baker?
do have a question. So, the term for it now is cry bully. And that's someone who like I would needle you and needle you and needle you until you snap back at me. And then all of a sudden I'm the victim.
Yeah.
And is that talked about?
I've never heard that term before, but I think, have you all heard that term before? Okay. The action, yes.
Yeah, and administrators have experienced situations
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I know it happens all the time. There's kids that
Yeah, it's in
they're
Google,
victim of,
the real word.
yeah. They're a victim of bullying,
Yeah.
but they're the ones needling the person until someone finally has enough of it. Right?
And that, our hope is that always comes out in the investigation part of it, that information gets shared, that student who then reacted is sharing with an administrator. Well, he kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And then we work with both of the kids to work through that situation.
to someone who intimidates or harasses others while claiming to be the victim of ill treatment.
Any other questions about that legislative piece? All right, and then just to walk you through a couple of quick school safety and security things outside of what Dr. Johnson has shared with you. So this is Garrett, our handheld metal detector. And because vaping is such an issue in our schools, we're not alone in this, and so many are dealing with it. This is a tool to help deter vaping. It's the primary use for it. But when an individual under reasonable suspicion, so a student is in the bathroom, the vape detector goes off, that's reasonable suspicion. We are then, by our policy, able to search that student. For some reason, if that vape doesn't turn up, but we know that vape detector went off, we can now use this handheld wand to then, because sometimes those vapes are hidden under clothing, and we can use that wand to then identify it and ask the student to turn it. So parents and guardians are always, at this point anyway, prior to the use of this device, we're always notified if we did a search. This is true too. If this handheld device is used, parents obviously will be notified that that has happened, and that's how the device was found, or in some cases may not be found. But it is another vehicle for us to be able to locate them. Other school divisions have been using this and have found great success with it. So we're optimistic and hopeful that it'll help us deter some kids from, one, using them, and two, bringing them to school. So again, school administrators were just recently trained on how to use it appropriately and how to monitor and how to stand and to be conscious of, it's always a two-person team when things like this happen. And so we're grateful again for Luray PD for helping with that training. And then communication about this is getting ready to roll out. So we'll obviously be sending out information to parents, and students will learn about this the first week of school. So everybody will be aware that this is happening. And if they're told that they're going to pull out their handheld metal detector, the kids will know what that means. It won't be a surprise. We're also creating, the team is creating a short PSA video that shows how it's going to be used and what it'll look like. So people will have a good sense of what that looks like. Mr. Painter.
So, just a question, Matt. So, I gotta say this. Is there concern about who wands who, like female to male, male to
We try to have it be the same sex. during
same
the
sex?
search.
Okay, good.
That's true now, even of regular searches. We don't have a man searcher.
And also not having an employee.
Yes, yeah, we always have two.
Yeah, good.
Anything else about that you all would add? Okay. And also just want to let you all know so that you're aware when you see all of this communication coming out as well, we are getting ready to deploy the Stop It App. We talked about this last year. We're now going to push that out, the full rollout of that. And again, that's the anonymous reporting system. So anybody sees something and they think it should be reported, they're worried about somebody, they've heard a threat, any of those, they think somebody's brought a weapon to school, here's an anonymous way to do it. It can be done from a phone, it can be done from a computer, variety of ways. Students in grades 5 through 12, Paul, is that correct? 5 through 12, thank you, will have it on their Chromebook. So anytime they load their Chromebook, that app will be right there. So they have instant access to be able to report things.
So is that like just while they're on a school server or when they're at home?
Anytime they are their Chromebook is up and connected, they can submit something.
So it might not be a kid, it could be a parent.
Could be a parent, yes. Parents can download the app on their phone as well.
But you used to have a code.
Yeah, we'll push all that information out. The new feature to it that I think we're excited about is it does have a 24/7, 365 interactive text crisis hotline. So and that's open to anybody, students, anybody that has our code can use it. Anybody's visiting one of our schools and they see the code on the wall, put it on your phone and you can use it, but it's a text-based counseling service if you're in crisis. So they'll engage with you about whatever's going on, and then if they think there needs to be some additional support, they'll either call in or they'll notify us. They'll know the location of where the person is and things like that. So we're excited about that piece because we think that might be helpful to some folks who, maybe at 11 o'clock at night, they may not have access to somebody, but they could potentially go on this and talk to somebody if they're struggling. Again, communications coming, getting ready to come out about all of that from the division level and the school level. And just as a reminder, this was funded through our ESSER 3 grant funds. So we'll move that over to local funding in the next year or get additional grant funding to pay for it. We wanted to also, just this is a quick snippet, Mr. Hopkins will give you a much broader review of this later on, but Mr. Painter helped us set up and pilot a mentoring program for students where community members come in and mentor students. We did it at Page Middle School last year. It was a successful mentoring experience. Some of the kids were very excited when their mentors came, and some didn't want that experience to end. So that's now being pushed out. We'll have that mentor program in all of our schools at the start of the school year. In August, right now, we're working on all those background preparations to get it all ready, starting to generate those lists of community members. There will be a push coming out where we're asking for people to be mentors. All of that will come out very soon. And then in September, once we get in and principals and staff start to get to know kids, they'll start to develop their list of the students that would probably benefit from having a mentor. They'll start securing that parent permission to allow them to engage with a mentor. And then that, again, all of that will be pushed out in terms of still soliciting people to help and serve as mentors. And in October, the mentoring sessions will begin. We'll do our training in September with all of our mentors so that they're ready. And then October, we'll start that. And it's fluid. Kids can move in and out as needed. And principals have the ability to add new kids as long as we have a community member to pair them with to be a mentor. So in terms of oversight at the division level, the main oversight falls with Mr. Hopkins. And then at the school level, it falls with the principal, but the bulk of this work is going to be done by those school community coordinators. If you recall that community school grant that we got from VDOE in the spring, money was allotted there for a stipend for a teacher or someone in the building to serve as a school-based community coordinator. The bulk of this work will fall on that person. It aligns perfectly with that programming. So we're happy and excited to have this rolling out, and we'll give you some updates as we go through the program. We just wanted to highlight tonight, in July, our school division was the focus of a Virginia Farm to School program, our nutritional services programs. Ms. Jeffries was highlighted on a video showing how we partner with local food producers. In this case, it was a gentleman who grows romaine lettuce, and how we partner with him to bring those fresh produce into our schools. So great video. The link is there. This will be posted later. Just encourage you to watch that. And we just want to say thank you to all of our nutritional services staff and Ms. Jeffries for working to coordinate to get those local fresh grown foods on kids' plates. And then finally, just a quick reminder of what's coming in the next 2 weeks. It's busy, busy, busy before the first day of school. So we have our new teachers coming in on Tuesday and Wednesday. All of them will be coming in. On Monday morning, Mrs. Ryman and her staff and others are meeting with the new teachers. So if this is your very first time in a classroom, you're spending time with our instructional staff, getting some additional training, and then all of them will participate in our traditional 2-day new teacher orientation. On Thursday, all of our staff return to our building, so principals will be doing their thing, welcoming everybody back. And then Friday morning, we'll have our convocation. It'll be at Luray High School this year. We're looking for a good time to welcome everybody back and just celebrate some of our successes from last year. And then Tuesday and Wednesday of the following week, we have all of our school orientations. So that information's starting to be pushed out. We encourage all parents and students to come. There's a variety of things going on in those buildings. And then, believe it or not, Monday, August 28th, 8:15 a.m., it's on and rocking and rolling again. So just want to say thank you to all the staff for their work over the summer. Lots of building work being done, grounds, maintenance, all that kind of stuff has taken place. Lots of finance and contract work this summer, lots of instructional programming and community work. So thank you to all of you guys for all your work to get it ready, and we're looking forward to welcoming all of our kids back on the 20th. Any questions tonight? Any more questions, Mr. Painter?
Thank you. Ms. Sechrist, claims for payment.
Yes, good evening again, board members. You've been provided with the claim certification where the operating fund is $79,354.30. Food service fund, $11,155.31. Total expenditures, $490,509.61. Along with that, you have the list of claims and the check registers. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those.
I move that we approve the claims certification as presented.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Gubler and a second by Mr. Painter to approve the claims for payment.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Dr. Payne,
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's see, purchase orders over 10,000.
Yes, we have 3 this evening for your approval. The first is for the Shenandoah Valley Regional Program. That is a joint operations with our special education department. We have one for Johnson Controls, which would be using, pardon me?
It's spelled wrong.
It's
We'll fix that.
Johnson Controls, and it is our CIP, that is state construction money. And then we also have one for restaurant equipment and supplies from Nutritional Services, and that is for all 8 school cafeteria locations. If you have any questions, I'm sure myself or Jeffrey's will do my best to answer them.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
Motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mrs. Sullivan Smoot to approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Dr. Payne,
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin,
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Fox, the student handbook and code of conduct for 2023-24.
Yes, thank you. So just briefly, I'm going to walk you through just a couple of changes. Most of these are either date related or just minor updates. Only a couple of sort of major ones, and one applies to that legislative update. So we've updated all of our dates in there. For our dress code, we did add in that blankets are prohibited. And that may be a weird one, but the reason that's in there is because kids were hiding behind the blankets and vaping, or using substances or doing other things. So blankets are going to be prohibited both at school and on the buses. So that is a new thing. We also have gone back to take a look at hoods, and we've been more specific about hoodies because kids were pulling them over their faces and then tying them up, and you could just barely see a part of their face. We need to be able to see them. It's a safety concern. It's not trying to be non-cool with the kids. It's a safety thing. They need to have their ears clear so they can hear if commands are given in the event of emergency. There have been some updates on our notifications of eating disorders on pages 22 and 23, updates on our notifications for scoliosis, and then just an update on page 27 for nutritional services. That relates back to the policy that was updated just recently. Am I going too fast? Andy, sorry. On page 28, there's an update about, if you recall, this spring or late winter, we updated completely our promotion and retention policy and created protocols there that schools are using. So this just reflects the updates for that policy. The student handbook, in terms of, there's a section on page 19 where we talk about early graduation. And what that, Ms. Ryman and her team developed a process where if a student wants to graduate early, they have to now have a formal written plan about what they're going to do. We want to make sure that they have their steps outlined, and then they have a conversation, their parents sign it, they meet with the school counselor and the principal to talk about it. If we feel like that plan is one that's really in the best interest of the student, then we'll approve that, and then they technically they graduate in June with us, but they may do something different their last semester of high school. And typically that might be going to a community college, starting college, enrolling in the military, or going to work and doing those internships or those kinds of things. So that just outlines that process. Couple of changes and updates to student parking
There's something, extra word on the last line of the first paragraph.
of the early graduate.
No, student parking, ANCE before issue.
Okay. We'll fix that. Thank you. VHSL information on page 35, if you could scroll to that for me. We just added some information. Go back up just a little bit. It's the red that's right before it, Linda. Thanks. little bit more. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, that's parking, sorry. Go down, I apologize.
One good thing, it's alphabetical order.
Yeah. We just added a little bit of information in there for VHSL, and basically all that does is refer everybody back to the VHSL handbook. Because we participate in the Virginia High School League, we follow all their rules that are in their handbook. So we just clarified that. It's not a change in anything, it's just a clarification. We added in the wellness policy that was revised back in the spring. That's been updated. And then in terms of our code of conduct, beginning on page 47, we just added to the response levels for BSC1, that offense we added in at the elementary level for alcohol offenses, we added in a level 4 and a level 5. Because depending on those situations with alcohol, they may need to come before the superintendent's disciplinary committee. So we just added those in, nothing's changed with that. On page 60 and 61, this is where we updated the bullying and reporting section to reflect that legislative update. That just came down. So that's been updated to reflect that. And then on page 62, we updated the information under search and seizure to reflect the use of the handheld metal detectors. And then the last part on page 54, if you'd go back just a little bit, Linda, we updated our information on appeals to reflect and align better with our policy that we have. So again, no substantive changes there to anything. It just aligns with the policy that we currently have. So what we're asking tonight is for you all to approve our 23-24 code of conduct. And then our next steps will be we'll publish it, we'll link it to all of our forms and parent portal, and then parents will begin reviewing and signing off of that as we begin this year. Any questions?
Yeah, just real quick. So we're not allowing blankets in the school?
No.
Okay, how you use the blanket?
Say again, I'm sorry.
The blanket, children are bringing blankets in and hiding things. Are they not allowed to have the blanket in school or?
No, we're asking not to bring blankets at all. If someone's cold or something like that, we'll get them a sweatshirt, a sweater, but we're saying no blankets.
Okay, all right.
And on buses as well.
Okay, and then the hoodie.
The hoodies, you can wear a hoodie. We just are asking for the hood to be down, not around your face and then scrunched up so we can't see your face.
Can it be on top of your head?
I would think it can be kind of hanging back a little bit, but we don't
Not
want
on
the
the top
face.
of your head.
We've said your ears need to be clear, I believe is the language we used. Ears need
They all
to be.
have their iPods in.
That's part of the reason is to conceal that they're listening to their music. But we need them not doing that because we need them to, if there's an emergency or a crisis or something, we need them responding quickly. But we also need to be able to see their faces and things like that. So that's part of the
See, I
reason.
wasn't aware blankets were being brought in until I talked to some people, and that was really a problem.
And part of that request actually also came from our bus drivers. So that's an attempt to be responsive to their concerns. They were the ones also that had, because kids would hide and you can't see over the seats, they would hide and they knew and suspected that kids were vaping under those blankets. So that's the reason for that.
And so we talk about, I know tardiness and absenteeism was in there. What do we roll out when we send this? Do we send that information that we saw at the retreat where 9% are 9 to 17 days?
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a whole separate blast that goes out with attendance. There's a series of different notifications that'll be sent about attendance. It's an ongoing campaign. It won't just be the first part of school. We're gonna keep that going. There's also a campaign that the Virginia Department of Education is getting ready to start, where they're gonna be pushing out stuff statewide about chronic absenteeism and why school matters and why it's important. And if you miss 4 days in the first week of school, you've put yourself in jeopardy for the remainder of the school year. So all that kind of data and facts and then policies and procedures. And we've revamped how parents can send us notes and things like that, trying to streamline things not only for our parents, but for our staff as well. Because part of this, the challenge with attendance is the record keeping of it, and keeping up with it. Because a kid can accrue 3 or 4 absences within the span of a week. And our staff have to, we have to have people to be on top of that so that it doesn't get to 17, because that's our max. If you hit 17, whether they're excused or unexcused, you're now considered chronically absent for us. So we're trying to intervene earlier, quicker, and more efficiently.
and the ones that were in the 9%, and then we kind of ballpark maybe another 3% were the 60 and 40 and 50. Are they talked to individually? Okay.
Yeah, often when you hit that number, those are conversations you're having with Kim Burton as well.
But I'm talking about as you start the new year.
Oh, yeah.
Coming in fresh.
Yeah, I do have to give a shout out to our principals. They've been working this summer. They've taken those lists. They've been meeting with parents. They've been coming in and creating what they call care plans, or how do we get to school plans, and working with each individual family to say, what is it that's the barrier for you to come to school, and then coming up with individual plans for them. So we're proud of the work that the principals have been doing. I think we'll see an impact from that. And we're just, for us, it's also those parents coming to the table and being willing to have those conversations with us and let us help them. So a shout out to those parents that came this summer for those meetings as well. Because it really is a partnership. We rely on them to help us get the kids to school, and they're relying on us to make school a place where kids want to go. So we're grateful for that, but we want to increase those partnerships as well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the only thing I have a question about is on your appeals process. So the first one on ISS, it talks about basically you can't appeal ISS or bus for 3 days or less, but it says ISS or bus suspensions of 4 or more days can be appealed to the school principal. The decision of the principal is final. Well, that's not an appeal, because appeals to go to someone higher.
So if the assistant principal.
It doesn't say that, like the other ones say when issued by assistant principal or admin designee.
Okay, gotcha.
So it only ever mentions a principal in that first one.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then I got a question for you, Dr. Fox.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to hold them to it on when they want to appeal to a principal, their decision's final? Or when it's issued by the principal, they appeal to the elementary and secondary directors and it's final? Are you going to let somebody come complain and then come to you? You're going to sorry, their decision's final. Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that they'll then override me and come to you all, because they're not going to be happy that I say that.
Okay. I just want to make sure that decisions.
The only time, I would say the only time is if in our conversation, if there was something new or the parent shared information that wasn't known at the time of the investigation, and that would change the outcome, that's a different scenario to me, where we would say potentially there would be a different outcome, but that's because new information was brought to the table.
I just don't want you with putting this on paper and then you end up with every single one of them appealing to you. But yeah, the ISS one has nobody to.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll fix that. We'll make the language mirror what's there in the others. I'll send you that back with that correction.
One of the biggest tensions also is with that process there, but also with the teacher. The teacher follows the rule, then the principal just overrides what they've done. That they're not going to go back and.
Well, the teacher can't do it.
Yeah,
unless
teachers aren't, in this particular case, for in-school or out-of-school, teachers can't assign those, so it would only be your admin designee, and typically that's not going to happen either. They're going to defer to the assistant principal or principal.
But I'm talking about, okay, so I'm going to talk about other products, particularly cell phones. A teacher, there's rules for the cell phone. Teacher holds to that rule. It goes to the principal, and they're trying to make peace with everybody, right? And overrides the teacher. The teacher's not going to enforce that rule anymore.
I mean, that
More about
happens
the
with
discipline.
I would say that happens at every level of discipline. We're working hard as a division to be more consistent about what we do and how we work through those situations. And I think principals are then working internally at their buildings to be with them and their AP for them to be consistent. Because it might be that there's something that happens and an AP gives one consequence, same thing happens, the principal might give a different. They're working hard, looking at their data to be consistent with each other. So I would say to that teacher, they need to go talk to that administrator, have a professional collegial conversation and say, help me understand why you didn't hold to this particular. That's an appropriate conversation to have in a professional manner. Because the principal can then walk them through. Maybe there was something that changed their decision that the teacher just wasn't aware of, or the principal needs to say, you know what, I messed up, and you're right, I'll fix it and we'll go forward.
I make a motion, we approve the 23-24 student handbook and code of conduct with the correction mentioned.
Second?
A motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mrs. Sullivan to approve the 23-24 student handbook and code of conduct with the change that was suggested.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Gabriel.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate that.
Board member discussion?
I would just like to say, most people understand this, but teachers are off June, July, and August, so to speak. But if you know anything, they are working 24/7, 12 months a year, just like the 12-month and 11-month employees. They might have times in, but they are working constantly. And I can't wait to go into Shando Elementary to see all the creativity that has, been put there with staff and everyone, and hats go off. But again, I just feel like we are so lucky in this county to have who we have in our school system, and they are giving it their all. And again, parents, to you, you're responsible for your child, and a lot of information's coming. You owe it to your child or children to read and know this information. And if you have questions, there's no one that you can't call in a building or at this office to get more information if you need it. But communication, and it works both ways. But I would just like to thank everyone in the system who has been really putting forth every effort possible to make this a more productive school year.
The poverty simulation, that was well done. I was glad to see one of the candidates that'll be on the ballot was there. It was good to see that. Hope that helped him understand a little bit better about our county and some of the situations. I thought they were very relevant. Last night I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting, and one of the things I think Supervisor Latterback mentioned was not having enough rentals for the companies that are bringing people in to do the work around our county. And I really think somehow we need to get the information out there. We have a lot of legacy families that are in our county living in motel rooms and sometimes living with parents, and you got 4 or 5 people in one room, or grandparents. We have a housing issue in our county. It's really a problem. Went up yesterday to Page County High School, and football practice was going on. Basketball in the gym, open gym. Talked to Coach Parker, and it was good to see that activity going again. And Liberty High School was the same way this morning when I was up there. Saw the football team in the back. So looking forward to everything getting started again.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Painter and a second by Mr. Painter to adjourn.
Dr. Painter.
Yeah.
Mr. Gabriel.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.